Welcome to another episode of Simple Thoughts. Today I'm going to be talking about something a bit different than what I normally talk about. It's sort of political, but not like, presidential political. It's more like internet politics, I guess you could say. And the main thing that I wanted to talk about was SJWs versus anti-SJWs. And I'm just going to give you my stance on the whole issue between the two. Now, my main stance on this is I'm not an SJW, and I don't consider myself an anti-SJW. Personally, both, in my opinion, suck. Both generally just suck equally, honestly. Because, to me, both are extremes. Both are just total extremes that I just can't agree with. And I guess I could break it down. Like, with SJWs, to me, they are regressive in that they get mad at people saying certain things that it's like people have a right to say. Yeah, people do have a right to say these things, and it's like, okay, you're freaking out a little over nothing. Like, that's just sort of my take on it. Is like they are like oversensitive a lot of the time, or a good chunk of them can be oversensitive. In which case, I'm just like, ugh. Like, I can't really get behind them on a lot of the things they get mad about. So that's sort of my take on them. And my big problem with, like, anti-SJWs, and I feel like I have more of a problem with anti-SJWs than I do, like, SJWs. I haven't really run into a lot of SJWs like that, but anti-SJWs I see have a big presence as well. And I end up hearing their opinions a lot more. So, but my main problem with them is they believe in too much freedom, Like, a lot of them advocate for the idea of freedom of speech, no matter what. You should be allowed to say whatever you want, whenever you want. And I'm just like, okay, freedom of speech, whenever you want, wherever you want, whatever you want. Okay, so you gonna call your mom a bitch and not expect to get punished? Like, you gonna do that? You're gonna go, like, you can go up, you want to be able to go up to your mom, call her a fat ass or a bitch or some insult like that, and you expect not to get punished for it. You expect that. Or say you're in school and you're talking to your friends and whatnot. You don't expect the teacher to get mad and maybe give you detention or in-school suspension, however your school does it. Like, you expect your teachers to just let you keep doing you because, freedom of speech. Like, that's my problem. It's like, freedom of speech has limitations. Like, there are things because the thing about freedom of speech is, for one thing, it's mostly for the government, is that the government can't arrest you because you said something that they just don't agree with. But there are exceptions to freedom of speech, and that's slander or libel, which are saying things that are not true about somebody that can hurt their reputation. And, stuff like that. Then there's also direct threats of violence. You can't do that. Those are things you just can't do. And honestly, that's kind of how it should be. It's like you shouldn't be allowed to get away with saying awful things about someone and it completely hurts their reputation. Like, you shouldn't be allowed to accuse someone of being a pedophile with no evidence, and then next thing you know, everybody starts believing that person is now a pedophile and their reputation is completely turned to shit. Of course, they should have a right to sue you because you just fucked up their life. So, of course, that makes sense. And then direct threats of violence is like, yeah, we need to keep an eye on you because we don't know what the hell you're up to. For all we know, we don't know if it's an empty threat or not. We really need to be sure you're not about to do some horrible shit that you shouldn't. Like that's my thing with, like, anti-SJWs. The biggest examples of a lot of these anti-SJWs, and I'll admit I'm sort of subscribed to them, but they're not really, like, two of them out of the few examples that I have, I'm subscribed to, but the main thing about them is they don't do a lot of SJW SJW bashing a lot, or they do, and it's usually the justified type of bashing. But even then, it's still like, could you just stop talking about it? It's like, oh my god, dude, like, move on to another topic. This gets so fucking boring to hear every goddamn time. But the main examples that I want to talk about is like Jaclyn Glenn, she's great. I like a lot of her content. You know, some of the videos I do enjoy from her. You know, she's part of the skeptics community, and I like a lot of her stuff. And when she talks about SJWs, sometimes she's on to good points. But one thing that gets me, like, one recent video she did was the thing regarding PewDiePie and the fact that he said the N-word. Now, my quick take on that is he shouldn't have said the hard R. I'm sorry, but that was indefensible. He shouldn't have said it because, for one, him saying that hard R, and even if it was in frustration, that indicates he's been saying the hard R a lot of times beforehand. And it's like, you can't say that. If he said nigga, I'd be like, whatever. He said nigga, fine. I don't get mad at that. But nigger, no, sorry. You shouldn't be saying that by any means. Thankfully, he apologized, so there's that. But again, he shouldn't have been saying that. But with Jaclyn Glenn, her take on the whole matter was her thing was, she said this, honestly, in my opinion, this very stupid thing is that she's like, you shouldn't be getting hurt by words. And I'm like, you shouldn't be allowed to say that. Want to know why? You don't have a word that has a history as bad as the N-word. You don't. Cracker is not that harsh of a word. Nigger, that's a detrimental word. Like, there is no other type of meaning behind it. So you don't have that right. It's like, you personally don't have that right. Like, my thing with the N-word, my thing is like, and her saying we shouldn't be getting so mad and offended about, I'm like, no, you should. That he shouldn't be saying that word. That word is just not right to be used. The hard R, it shouldn't be said. It's not, it has no other bearing other than to be a degrading term for black people. It has no other meaning. It's not like, say, the word faggot, which had multiple meanings throughout history. Like that, there's like, even South Park tried to make a good argument, is that, you know, the word faggot doesn't have to be a slur against gay people. It could be for, like, jerks. In South Park's case, it was like assholes who ride those loud ass Harley Davidsons, like, through, like, peaceful areas, environments. It's like, but I digress. Like, they had a good point, is that the word faggot works because you can change its meaning. It can be changed because it's constantly been changing throughout history. But with nigger, it had no other meaning. It has no other meaning. It has no other difference to it. And when black people say it, even though black people, we say it, we changed it. We had to change it from ER to GA. It had to be nigga instead. We had to actually change the pronunciation. That's how we kind of took some power away. That we had to change it. But but PewDiePie saying straight up nigger is like, no, he shouldn't have said that. By no means should he have said that. And I constantly hear this dumbass excuse of, well, he was frustrated. I'm like, do you say the N-word when you're frustrated? Real question. Do you say the N-word when you're frustrated? No, you don't. You most likely don't. And if you do, then you're a horrible person. I'm sorry, you just are. But like even Angry Joe, even he was like, yeah, no, why wasn't your default word when you're frustrated something like motherfucker? Like come on. Like, why didn't you go with, like, the default motherfucker or something like that? How do you just go straight to nigger? Like, there's no justification. You can say, oh, I was frustrated. But I'm sorry. Honestly, the argument of frustration is bad because you're ultimately excusing it. Anything can be excused because, well, without a frustration, you know, someone shot someone in the face because that person got really frustrated. You know, the suspect got really frustrated with the victim and they decided to shoot them in the face because they were frustrated. I'm like, you see how that doesn't work? It falls flat on its head. It's like, that's why you can't use the argument of frustration being a justification. It's never a justification for anything, no matter what you do. Frustration never can justify your actions. And because it shows you really have no control over yourself, and you clearly can't operate properly in society if you get frustrated and you do these horrible, irrational things. But that was my thing with Jaclyn Glenn. I still like her content, I do. It's just when she got on to PewDiePie, I was like, nope, cannot agree with you on some of that. Could not. I'm sorry, because PewDiePie ultimately he keeps fucking up, and it's like he's messing up YouTube a lot. So you should be getting mad at him because it's like he's he's helping and screwing up your money, right? Like he is. So yeah, with Jaclyn Glenn, I just get mad. I got mad at that little thing about her take on the whole PewDiePie thing, because she is of the believers of freedom of speech no matter what, and I'm just like, no. And on the Armored Skeptic, he makes good videos, but when he starts getting into SJW business, I'm like, oh my god, dude, can we kind of move along to something else? Like, I get sick of hearing about SJW this, SJW that. Both, like I said, suck. I don't like anti-SJWs, and I don't like SJWs. They're too extreme. And Armored Skeptic, he just kind of keeps on it a little too much, and I'm like, move along, please. I don't know. Like, I just wish he would get off of this. One person who really gets on my nerves, I'm not subscribed to by any means. I'm subscribed to like Jaclyn Glenn and Armored Skeptic because they do have actual good content and they make a variety of different things. But this one guy, I just can't stand. This asshole, some black guy. I'm like, oh. Because personally, no, I have personal issues with him as well. Mainly just, I feel like he's a self-hating black guy. I feel like he hates his own race. That's what I feel like whenever I watch his stuff. Like, he just hates himself. He just hates black people. That's what it comes across as. And that's why I just can't fuck with him. I'm like, why would I watch someone who just hates themselves that fucking much? Like, but I just don't like this anti-SJWs mainly, like, and some black guys in the same vein, because I recently watched his thing on the whole PewDiePie saying the N-word. And he's a big advocate of the whole freedom of speech no matter what. But the thing about it is, like, you need to understand, there is no such thing as freedom of speech no matter what. Here's the thing, like, people have a right to respond to anything you say and do. That's just how it is. That is the reality we live in. We don't live in some great utopian area where you can say whatever you want and people will just walk on by with a smile on their face and not give a shit that you said something horrible. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. People are gonna respond to stupid shit. And another big problem with both Jaclyn, Armored Skeptic, and some black guy and other anti-SJWs is that they're hypocrites in my mind. A lot of times they're very hypocritical. Because the big thing is that they want to be like, freedom of speech no matter what. I should be allowed to say whatever I want, whenever I want. Then why do you make response videos about everything? I mean, you say freedom of speech no matter what, so why the fuck do you keep making response videos about people who are saying whatever they want? You know? You shouldn't be talking about it. You should just be like, well, they have a right to say whatever they said, so I'm just gonna move along. And I know they might, if they see this video, they might respond saying some shit like, well, it's because we're talking about their bullshit and trying to talk it down because it's spreading. I'm like, well, here's the thing. You go against your own logic no matter what, because if you believe in absolute freedom of speech, that means you believe not saying anything or getting mad at somebody for saying something you don't like. By all that means, that's what your logic is. So you ignoring your own logic is like, why should we really be listening to you? You know, if you can't keep true to yourself, why should we be listening to you? But that's my thing. Like I said, Jaclyn Glenn and Armored Skeptic, I do like some of their other content. When they're not talking about SJWs, when they're talking about other things, I can get behind a lot of their stuff. Some black guy, fuck no. And honestly, it pisses me off that I keep getting his shit popping up on my like recent uploads or recommended. It's like, I don't watch this dude. Please stop. I've done the whole not interested on the timeline thing, but it still doesn't work. Like, his new stuff keeps popping up on my shit, and I'm like, stop. But yeah, like, I really don't like that's just my big problem with a lot of anti-SJWs, that they're just hypocrites. And honestly, and Anthony Fantana from the Needle Drop, he had a really good video that was bringing his piece about the whole PewDiePie controversy with the N-word. His thing is like, personally, I don't use the N-word. even if my black friends say, hey, you could say it. Me personally, I'm like, yeah, if you say nigga, like the saying goes is, GA, you okay? ER, you're going to the ER. That's just what it is. It's like, that's what it is. It's like, GA, you're fine. ER, that's a problem. And Anthony Fantana's thing is like, personally, I just don't want to do that because that's just kind of indecent. You know, it's just kind of rude. His thing is like, I just don't want to say I don't want to say something like that. He just wants to be, he's trying to be courteous. And I'm like, respectable. Wholly respectable if you don't want to say the word. It's like, no, it's like you are not forced to. If you feel uncomfortable saying that word, it's like, by all means. Like, you have an okay to say nigga, at least from me. I don't speak for all black people, but it's like, if you have the okay from like your black friends to say it, it's like, I mean, you just don't want to, it's like, by all means. It's totally understandable if you don't. Nobody's gonna get mad. So that's my thing. It's like, but Anthony Fantana, he made a great point, and mainly the point that I'm talking about as well, is that, like, for all these anti-SJWs who are like, freedom of speech, it's like, so what? So I guess you're gonna go up to your boss and talk shit about him and all that, and you're gonna expect not to get fired. It's like, yeah, that like, you don't realize how society just doesn't work the way you wish it would, where nobody gets mad or responds to what you say. And like I said, the hypocritical part is you guys keep responding to people saying things that you don't like. So you don't live up to your own expectations of freedom of speech. That's why I'm like, no. That's why it's like, you guys really just kind of shut the fuck up about it. Because, like I said, SJWs are bad because they do want to kind of take away some freedom of speech. It's like, people do have a right to say what they want. They don't need to go to jail for it. Some people might lose their jobs for it, and I can be fine with that because it's like, you're hurting the business. You know, if you're hurting a business, then sorry, dude, you gotta go. So that's my main thing about it. Like, both SJWs and anti-SJWs, they suck. They're both extremes, and the main thing about it is like, they just don't know. They fail to realize there is a middle ground. There is a middle. Like, we don't need to do these two sides shit. There's a middle for this type of conflict. Sure, there are other things where there are like major nuances to it, but with this, there's a middle. And the middle being, yes, you should be allowed to say what you want, but people should be allowed to respond. People have a right to say, I don't like what you said, and here's why. That's what it is. That's how it's gonna be. Like, we're never gonna get, like, for the anti-SJWs, we're never gonna get to a point where nobody says anything about what you say. That's just dumb. That's absolutely dumb to believe we're gonna get to that type of level. Come on. That's just unrealistic. Like, everyone's gonna respond to everything, no matter what. People have a right to respond, and they always get mad about the whole, a certain speaker wasn't allowed to speak. You don't have a right to a fucking platform. It's like, you have freedom of speech. You don't have freedom to platform. like plain and simple. Like, you could say whatever the fuck you want, wherever you want, but like, you don't need to be getting paid for it. That's why I don't really care for Tommy Lacatu or Milo Yiannopoulos getting paid to go up to do these speeches, because I'm like, they don't need a platform. They're just trolls. Why the fuck are we giving trolls platforms? They're just assholes trying to piss people off. They don't have any real stance on anything. They're just useless. They're absolutely useless. So my thing is like, just for the anti-SJWs, like, just shut up about having absolute freedom of speech. Like, another person sort of on this line is also Mr. Repzion. Like, some of his content I do like. Some of the stuff he talks about is, like, he has good points. Like, he helped bring some attention to, like, some major issues, like with Daddy of 5 or Father of 5, whatever his dumbass name was. Like, he helped bring attention to something like that. He did good on that front, because that kid needed to get out of there. You can go look up that whole controversy if you want, but the main thing is that with Mr. Repzion, he's also in the same vein as like Armored Skeptic and Jaclyn Glenn, that they believe absolute freedom of speech, and I'm just like, no, that's just not going to be a thing where people don't respond to the things you say. People are going to hate the things that you say. That's just a fact of life, and you're never going to change that. That's it's human nature. It's human nature to kind of respond to things that you don't like. You know, you put something in your mouth and it tastes bad to you. What's your first instinct? Spit it out. You didn't like it. It's like, that's your body. That's you responding to that taste. So that's my main thing. Like, in SJWs, now I don't subscribe to any type of SJW channels, because personally I'm like I said, they are regressives. Like, they do kind of want to take away like rights and that are just there, that we shouldn't be trying to get rid of. And people have a right to say what they want. But with SJWs, I just can't fuck with them. I'm like, sorry, man. Like, people do have a right to say what they want. If you want to get mad about it, by all means. If they say something that they clearly should not be saying, sure, get mad about it. Like PewDiePie saying the N-word, yeah, get mad about it. He shouldn't have said that. Like, he clearly should not have said that word. And there's no excuse. Frustration, damn a frustration. Fuck a frustration. Like, he just clearly shouldn't have said that. And SJW's getting mad on that front. It's like, he shouldn't have said it. That was just not a word he shouldn't have been saying. But anti-SJWs, I'm like, alright, man, we're not in a world where absolute freedom of speech is going to be a thing where everybody can say whatever they want and nobody respond. Like I said, it's hypocritical on their part as well, because they keep responding to the SJWs. And I'm like, do you not see the fucking cycle you're creating? You're creating this constant cycle of toxicity. Stop it. Just stop. Fuck, man. Like, you are allowed to respond to shit. You very much are. That's the thing anti-SJWs need to understand. People are allowed to respond to things, whether they like it or not. That's just what it is. That's the facts of life. You can't change that. And that's just my main thing. Like I said, personally, I'm in the middle. You have the freedom to say what you want, but in society, if you say some dumb shit or say something that does piss someone off, they have a right to respond to you. Sure, you shouldn't go to jail. You shouldn't go to jail because you said something that people don't agree with. I mean, sure, you should get sued if you do libel or slander, and you definitely should be monitored if you're doing direct threats of violence, by all means. But I just can't get behind the idea of absolute freedom of speech without offending somebody. People have a right to be offended, and that is the reality we live in, and that's the reality it should be. It should be you are allowed to respond to something that you don't like. That's human nature. That's our basic instincts. And that's why I have a problem with both anti-SJWs and SJWs. They're just both two extremes that they're just not helping anybody. They just suck on both ends. They're not helpful to anybody, and honestly, they hurt the internet more and more because they make everybody look bad, and it's just constant fighting. Like, I'm on Tumblr, and I managed to stay out of a lot of that bullshit. I managed to avoid a lot of the SJWs and anti-SJW shit on Tumblr, surprisingly. Like, I'm just more of the cartoon community, granted, in the Loud House community that, ugh. But either way, it's just the main takeaway is just there is a middle ground to be reached between anti-SJWs and SJWs. It's like there is a middle ground. You guys need to just go for the middle, please. This is one of those. There is a middle. Go for it. Stop doing this extremist shit because both are wrong. Because both sides are ultimately wrong in the end, and that's just a harsh reality of it, honestly. And it's a reality we should be living in, and we should accept by all means. If you like this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And also, go to my Patreon and become a patron today. $1 can gain you early access to all videos, and also get your name at the end of every video that comes out. So follow the link at the end of the video and become a patron today. And always remember, it's just a thought.